Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Hello, I am here, and Kay is here. Kay, I'm gonna just quote our awesome chat here because I'm looking at the chat,
Yes.
and Keksho says, Line is a freaking hab, and
Yeah.
that is absolutely the take from this game.
What a world. Yeah. Yeah.
That was incredible. It's funny watching Line right now because he doesn't look great, and then he gets the puck on his stick, and it's like, oh, it's in every time.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
just a killer. For
Yeah.
those who are joining us here, as you can see, we've got a little bit new digs. We've got two sponsors now for the Montreal show. The Le Saint Motel and Inchu Bijou, both in St. Henry in Chateau St. Ambroise, which I really highly suggest that you check them out. Inchu Bijou is a jewelry store and a locally run jewelry store, and Saint Motel is attached to Inchu Bijou, but is a selfie studio right beside. And if you've never been to a selfie studio, it's super fun. They have like 10 or 11 different decors that you can go in and take pictures. It's a really fun time. You can go in there, hang out, and it's just an awesome place. So I highly suggest you check it out. We're going to have ads filmed shortly for both places as they're with us for the rest of the season. And we're going to have them, we're pumping them out as much as we possibly can because we want to show sponsors how much we care about working with people that are awesome in our communities. This is the whole mission of Game Over. Yeah, it's great hockey analysis and all that, but it's also getting us all involved in our local communities and uplifting the right people. All right, Kay. So what is your number one take from tonight outside of Patrik Laine?
Okay, outside of Patrik Laine, my number one take is, oh my God, the Buffalo Sabres. And my second take is, I don't want to become that.
Yes.
They're 1A and 1B. That's what my takes are. How are you feeling about what we're seeing? That was ugly. That was bad. I mean, I loved it. Don't get me wrong. But if I was a Sabres fan, oh man.
Yeah. Like, I'm trying to put it into words because on the one hand, I hate the Sabres so much because they have given the Canadiens so many fits for so many years. And I find they're never a team that I find that I like. Like, they're just always annoying and chippy and frustrating. But I do like a lot of what they've put together. But, Sabres fans deserve better than this. Like, they've given that team so much support and that ownership group way more support than they deserve.
Yeah.
And this is what they get. Like, it's rough. It's rough.
I'm just glad that after what the fans at home had to see last game with the Penguins, I'm glad that they got like their money's worth. Again, our MFM from our chat is at the game or was at the game, and I'm glad that like it would just have sucked for them to give a back-to-back performance, especially in a situation like that. So yeah, I'm glad for the team because it's been the vibes haven't in the last game or so. It hasn't been as good as good as it was right after Laine, but Laine's brought him right back because the ovation, the Bell Center, the game. Oh my God, my brain is all over the place because I had so much fun.
Yeah, it was in a way kind of like a response game, right? The last game in the Bell Center got away from them really badly, and then they weren't able to figure things out in time last game. Although I thought they played a decent game, but this one they got what they deserved early, and then I think they kind of just stopped pushing after the first period. But Buffalo kept on taking dumb penalties.
Oh, I thought you were saying Buffalo stopped pushing after that.
Oh no. I mean, they didn't really have much. I feel like they tried with 6 or 7 minutes left in the first. They were trying to push things, and in the second period, I thought they got like some decent territorial situations, but they just weren't able to bring it. And the Canadiens, I don't think were taking them very seriously, which is not a good thing overall. Like I would have liked to see a little bit more in the second period from the Canadiens. They were okay in the third, but at the same time, when things are that comfortable and the Sabres keep on taking penalties and Laine is just shooting missiles into the back of the net every time he gets the puck. Yeah, it's easy to take your foot off the gas pedal psychologically.
Yeah, yeah. I think I was honestly, as the first was winding down and the second started, I was getting a little concerned. Um, because one thing I have repeatedly been concerned about with this team is killer instinct.
Mm-hmm.
And I sounded like a psychopath on socials today because I was like, they're not dead yet. Keep going. I was like, don't let them up off the mat. Keep your foot on their throat. And I was like, you sound like a psychopath. But genuinely, that's how I was like, I want to see that. I want to see it happen. And maybe they didn't maintain it the entire game, but I feel like a good majority of the second, they kind of kept that. They kept that mentality of, okay, we're gonna keep pushing. We're gonna keep pushing. And I think once Laine, I think that Anderson goal was like Owen Power just stopped doing
Yeah.
his job. Uh, which he was rough this game. Um, but I think essentially they were pushing the hardest until Laine got the Hattie. And then once he got that, they were like, okay, well just they did the thing, but they were like, okay, well, we're good.
Yeah. You know what's kind of funny is that in this game, according to Natural Stat Trick, the Canadiens gave up about as many expected goals while on the power play as they accumulated. They just also got 2 5-on-3s and scored on. And their
Yeah.
one shot on the power play at 5-on-4 was Patrik Laine in the first period. Sorry, they had 2 shots for. But
Well,
yeah,
it's
when you
not
can
broken.
when you can get the puck to Patrik Laine, it's pretty confidence going in. One of the things that I looked at in this one, it was the fin-on-fin violence. Patrik
I know.
Laine has now scored 5 goals on 6 shots on Luukkonen in his career, and then Armia got in on the action as well. And that Armia line was fantastic tonight.
Yes.
But yeah, the fin-on-fin violence was out of control tonight. I'm actually kind of sad Heineman didn't get in on the action because I thought, again, he played a very good game.
Again, yeah, he's just so steady. Um, I've been so happy with that line in general. Um, like, you know me, I love Jake Evans, I love Armia, and the pairing obviously works for me. And then I'm really starting to love Heineman in that same way. And I'm like, you know when you get like your favorite, like your guys, your like bottom 6 guys who you're
Yep.
like, oh, that's my dude. I feel like now we have a line full of those dudes, which just it's just so exciting because I feel like more often than not, they're doing good things out there. Um, Basically that's all you want out of your fourth line, I guess is what they are, is for them not to hurt you. And when they're actively helping you and actively scoring, that's
Yeah.
that's just all you could ask for.
It's true. And I mean, I think Jake Evans is that guy for us in a lot of ways, right? He's the
Yeah.
bottom 6 guy that we're overly attached to. And we're all looking down at the contract situation at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And, Owen Beck is probably taking a step towards the NHL next year. Jake Evans is at that age where you want some security, you want some
Yeah.
term. And the Canadiens are at that time where giving him that term is probably not the best idea.
Mhm.
But I kind of hope
I
that
want
they
him.
keep Jake Evans.
No, but I want him, and I think, like, Jake Evans is also the kinda guy that a coach loves. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's just our bottom 6 guy, I think he's Marty's bottom 6 guy too. And his emotional support bottom 6 guy. Because there was a little while where I was tracking time on ice, Andrew, and there was a good time where, a good little portion where it was Suzuki at the highest for forwards, and then it was Jake Evans.
Yep.
Like, yeah. Yeah, so I think Marty would like him to stay too, as much as I want him to stay, you want him to stay. I think a lot of people would really like him to stay.
Yeah, 100%. Frederick Roulette points out Heineman's actually Swedish, which I totally blanked on. I'm so used to the Canadians never bringing in Swedes that
Yeah.
I just assumed Finnish. He's got the Finnish look, so I apologize, Emil Heineman. Yeah, Emil Heineman is Swedish. He's from Leksand. So apologies for that. Thanks for
Can they
pointing that out, Frederick.
smuggle him? Can they smuggle him onto Team Finland?
I mean, they probably, I don't know if they would if they could, but Finland definitely is thinner, I think, than you want for a team that's in that like 4-team group. They're probably the team that's like considered the weakest, but they're always such a hardworking team that
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're never out.
They're never an easy out. Yeah. Sweden always
Yeah.
seems to get the best of them in like the big games,
Mm,
but I don't know. Finland's been really coming up lately. Like it's
yeah.
been a long time now where the World Juniors, Finland's been one of the bigger teams.
Yeah.
I think you see a lot more players coming out of Finland that are not just like that hardworking uh, lunch pail guy.
Grinding
More
it
of like,
out. Yeah.
yeah, you got more Sasha Barkovs, you got more Mikko Rantanens that are just like star level players, and
Mhm.
that's awesome because for a very long time, Team Finland was like Solani, Koivu, and I forget who was the other guy. Was it Peltonen? Was the other part of that line? He was not a NHLer for a very long time, but it was like that was their international line, and they didn't really have much scoring depth outside of that. We're getting off track here, but all this to say, when it's not Team Canada for me, it's Finland.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to agree. Um, I am seeing a comment here from Dennis, or Denny. I'm not sure. The Habs center depth is precarious. We need Jake Evans. Um, I actually do agree. I know Owen Beck is one of those safer. Nobody's a safe bet, but a safer bet as far as those kind of prospects go. Um, but I think with Armia going too, which I do think he's gonna out of the two, he's the one probably most likely to not come back. Our power play is gonna need a steadying force. And I love what Josh Anderson's been doing, but do I trust him to keep that up long term? And that's not an insult to him. It's not what he's done, right? Um, and listen, we need someone to win the face-offs. And if Christian Dvorak is also gone, what's it gonna be?
Yeah, there's a lot of things up in the air for the Canadian center depth. I
Yeah,
want to talk about that in the second segment, actually.
yeah.
But before we get there, do you have any other thoughts on like this specific game?
Tiny rocks. I know we touched on this slightly, but man, am I happy he's on this team, and I'm so glad they took that little chance on him. Because he's so far proving them right. And like you said, he said that he's not feeling his best. So when he feels his best, oh man, I can't wait to see. I know he's a goal scorer, they're streaky, whatever. All those disclaimers aside, I'm just glad he's on the team. I like him. I like him. That's my final word on this game. I like Patrik Laine.
Seriously, I mean, talking with Ty last game, and he was mentioning that Nick Ehlers is like Laine's best friend, and I was like, you know what? I could
I
really
did have a thought.
enjoy Nick Ehlers in Montreal playing with Patrik Laine. I'd be
There's
very
a very
pro that.
typical Montreal fan, the very typical Has fan thing. There's a guy. No, there is a guy. There is a guy, indeed.
There's a guy. We need the guy. Yeah, Laine continues to impress me, and as you mentioned on the show before, I think his honesty is just goes so far. And I saw some posts out there tonight on social media talking about Laine's impact on like mental health discussions in the NHL. And I know we've mentioned it before on the show, but I want to keep mentioning it because I really do think that it's really, really important how
Yeah.
open and honest he is and how raw he is about that stuff. And being around a very young team, having somebody who was anointed as like somebody who could possibly hit 70 goals very
Yeah.
early in their career and then have
Yeah.
that crash and fall under him and see like how precarious an NHL career actually is and how much things that have nothing to do with hockey can like pull you aside. I
Yeah.
think that's really important, and I think it's going to really benefit this team a whole heck of a lot.
Just like one thing is he had a rough game last game. And I'm like that's not like a big critique because I was honestly expecting the first games to look like that. I think he had like a very rough game. And I'm really relieved. Like I'm not relieved. I guess I was wondering what we would see out of him the next game after such a rough outing. Um, and I think this is another sign of his maturity is he was able to be like, okay, well, that's behind me. And I think that's something I also hope he's able to bring to this locker room.
Yeah. Trinka mentions the confidence that Laine has after all he's gone through in his intermission interview. He was like, yeah, those goals are going to go in every time. And Bernardo Sunier says, I don't understand how slowly the puck got to his stick tonight for a one-timer and he still scored. I feel like both, like the second and third goal, and I understand 5-on-3, it changes things for sure. But both of them, from what I saw, and I haven't been able to watch the replays a bunch of times, so if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But Luukkonen was set for both.
Yeah.
And still Laine beat him. And I think that's what people are seeing that's kind of blowing their minds, is that it's not to take anything away from Cole Caulfield, because Cole Caulfield can do that too, but most of his game is about being quicker, about, like raising the puck from a very sharp angle, like those really finessey goals, and like it.
Yeah.
Being quick with his hands is very much part of his game. And Laine, it's like he doesn't even need to be fast. Yeah. He's like, this is a seeing eye shot. It's just going to find a way. It's just going to beat goalies because it's so fast, so heavy. The release is so deceptive. And like we saw that tonight. Like, I don't know if there's anybody else outside of maybe Matthews who could rip it like that from a slow, like from just a stopped position.
Exactly. It was literally like you would expect, like, I don't know. It feels like he's just got something special there, which is like not a very like analytical thing to say in any means, but sometimes the guy just has it, and I feel like he has it. And with that goal, I think it's just a really one of them was a really beautiful sequence of Slav fought it in the corners. He got that puck. He sent it to Suzuki, who had three guys on him. So this must have been one of the other power plays. He had three guys on him, and Suzuki sent it to Laine, and Laine was like, "Thank you very much." So I was really happy with that trio. I was happy with the new first line. Plath getting a goal. We didn't even touch on that. So it's just been good stuff this game.
Yeah, and I lied. I do want to talk about Slav before we talk about the centers, but we're going to do that in the next segment. We'll do kind of like a check-in and on a couple players. But yeah, that was it. It's honestly just crazy what Laine is able to do with his shot. And, I saw Trinka, or no, it wasn't Trinka. It was Frederick says that's what an elite shot looks like. I feel like it's beyond elite, right? It's like that's a generational shot. Now, it doesn't mean that he's going to go back to scoring 40, 50-ish goals, but the shot is ridiculous. Trinka says Cole Caulfield's more elusive. Patrik Laine is blatant.
That's a good way of putting it.
It's a very, very good one. All right. We also have something to tell you about with Hyperdrive Hockey. It's Tuesdays and Fridays. If you haven't checked it out yet, I really suggest you do. Max Van Hoot, Daphne Malboeuf putting together amazing shows every single day, or not every day, sorry, every Tuesday and Friday. Kevin Laramie producing the show. It's extremely slick. It looks fantastic. It sounds great. And these folks are bringing creativity to their hockey coverage that you're just not seeing in other places. So I highly suggest you check it out. If you don't want to watch it on video, that's totally fine because it's available on a podcast everywhere you can find podcasts. Just search Hyperdrive Hockey and you'll find it there. And by the way, while you're looking, you can search Game Over Montreal as a podcast, subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts, and maybe listen and throw us a rating because that really helps. All right. I'm going to switch over to the second segment here, Kay, and let's start out with Juraj Slafkovsky because I just want to go over it quick and talk about tonight because in our last segment, I want to do like a bit of a naughty or nice thing because this is going to be my last one before the holidays. And I am so impressed with the way that Juraj Slafkovsky handles the pressure of Montreal. And I was trying to communicate this to a few different media members over the last week about talking about Slafkovsky and similar about Doc, which I want to transition into. The panic does not make sense. I understand he's made some dumb passes. He's rushed some plays in certain situations. But tonight, after all that criticism, goal and an assist, both really heads-up plays, who leads the team in expected goals for percentage? Juraj Slafkovsky. 79.28% while he's on the ice. Like, that line had actually a pretty rough first period, and when everyone else kind of took the foot off the gas pedal, Slafkovsky, Caulfield, and Suzuki put it on. because they are the heartbeat of the team. And we've talked a
Yes.
lot about the third and fourth lines being great this year, and they have been. They deserve every bit of love we've thrown them. But when push comes to shove, it's always that line.
Yeah. Nothing happens without them. Like you said, they're the heartbeat. Um, I I don't I just think Slav is such a good I think he's very good at letting things roll off his back. Now, with the caveat that I'm not sure if everybody else has kind of been catching glimpses of his interviews, but he's been doing this like not gentle and not jokey, but like very obviously like an actual pushback on some of the comments or like questions that he's getting. So he had one that was like, "Oh, should the fans pay? Is this worth a ticket? Like, and if are they like they're paying like $600, which I don't know, but like whatever they are, right? Like whatever that is." He was able to handle it very like he made it very clear that he did not like the question, but he was like, "I yes, of course, we're a young team, and what are you guys gonna say when we win next game? Which what are they gonna say,
Yep.
right?" So I think Slav is and he did it without being too combative. You know what I mean? Like there's something about him that's just you forget sometimes that this isn't the only pressure cooker he's been in. He was the face, and I would imagine still is the face of Slovakian hockey for a long, long time. Essentially, since he grew into even half the body that he has right now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Ever since he like showed that potential. So I think he's just so good for this market. And more than that, we're seeing him work it out. And I'm so glad that Marty put him back on that first line. I genuinely just think that I didn't think he was bad on that second line either, Andrew. I
Me
know
either.
people are like, I know people are really down on it. I think the line overall was just struggling a little bit, which makes sense. But I don't think he was ever the problem. But I do think ultimately this is where he belongs with Cole and Nick. I think you don't, that's a trio that it's like, do not separate.
Oh, on that note, I'm glad that you queued that up perfectly. Keck Shows has an on-topic question. Says, question for you. Next year with Demidov, do you touch the current first line? I'll pass that to you, Kay.
Ooh. Um, I think you do. I think you have to. I think that's the kind of guy you give time and space, and that's just what you I mean, maybe not start him on the first, but I think a player like that, I've been really looking forward to the idea of seeing him and Nick play together. He's
Mm,
a very smart player. He's if you watch like goals and stuff of him and like you watch analysis, which shout out to elite prospects, they always have good stuff, good videos and stuff on YouTube. So be sure to check that out. Um, but if you look at that and you just see what the IQ is, and I just wonder what he and Nick can make happen together. So I really do want to see them together. Um, I don't know who you take off that top line because I think Slav and Nick are also very good together. So I don't what do you think?
yeah, I think the Canadians are in a position where it doesn't make sense to be rigid about pretty much anything, right?
Yeah,
And I think the kids are mature enough and confident enough, as we've seen this year, that I don't think they're going to start to pout if like Caulfield gets knocked down to line two. They've already done it. He just
mhm,
kept scoring, like he just kept
yeah,
playing well. Slavkovsky got knocked down second, third line, doesn't pout, just keeps playing.
mhm,
Not to say that they're perfect. Like they still make mistakes and have
of course.
periods of time where they slump, right? Every player does. But I haven't seen much in this team in terms of complaining about where they're playing from the kids, which is good. We haven't even heard rumors of it really. The only
Yeah,
thing that we've really heard is that they want to start winning, which
yeah,
I love hearing
yeah,
because guys like Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, who've been through this for a while now, I understand they definitely have to have patience, of course. They have to
of
trust
course.
management, and that's on management to make them trust them, like
To
to give
convince
them a
them, yeah.
reason, right?
Mhm.
But I want them to want more,
You know
and
what
that's a
happens
good
when a
thing.
team doesn't want more?
The Buffalo Sabres?
The Buffalo Sabres happen.
So
Yeah.
rude, but yes.
And also I just want to point out I'm not with the Sabres. I was having a thought and I was like, I don't even think at this point you can blame the players for the culture. It's not even the players anymore. You can't this is what they've built. This is what the
Yep.
guys up top have built. I don't think you can put this on the players because I just like had like a random thought because I was thinking of Bo Byram, who was on the Avs, and I was like thinking about like him going from that very competitive team to the Sabres and like what happened with Middlestat, who was traded. Anyways, point being, I was just thinking of that like shift, and I was like, a guy like that doesn't lose what he's been taught on the team that he was drafted with, that he played with, that he won a cup with. If a player like that has become disillusioned, that's not on the player anymore.
Yep. 100%.
You've
This
seen
is
plenty of different players do this. It's not just one guy.
yeah. It's gone on too long to be a player problem. Way too long. And
Yeah.
I think you can look back throughout, and it's easy to look back. Hindsight is 2020, but I feel like people were on the Sabres at the time when they've made blunder after blunder. Some things I think, like overall, if you were to ask me at the beginning of last season, I would have said that they were on a good track. They've acquired a lot of really good talent, a lot of high-end talent across different positions. I still believe in Devin Levi, but they rushed it.
Yeah.
They tried to ram it through too fast because they're impatient, because how could you not be after so long?
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things where, again, they have to realize their rebuild is not over.
Yeah.
Just because you've had to do 2 in a row doesn't mean it's over, and that sucks. That sucks.
Yeah.
Just to check in on the chat, King of the North says, Andrew Berkshire, you beautiful person. Thank you, man. It's nice to see you. I see Ty DeLello is in the chat. Nice to see you joining from Game Over Winnipeg. Laine hat trick tonight. Got to be a good night for Winnipeg Jets fans. I was chatting with them all night on Bluesky.
I'm sure they're thrilled.
Yeah. I mean, they do love Laine. Like, they absolutely adore Laine.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I'm saying. I'm sure they're thrilled. I didn't mean that sarcastically. But also Ty, I know how it sounded as soon as it came out of my mouth. But Ty said, Demida, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Caulfield, Doc Line. He was giving the lines, but I thought he was suggesting the first line. I was like, Ty, I can't put those guys all on the first line.
Just pull the goalie and go 6 forwards. Full send every game. Oh, that'd be too funny. Oh, man. It's nice to have a fun game where we can come in here and laugh and not be upset. But speaking of that, now we're going to do a hard right turn, and we're going to talk about Kirby Dach because, man, this guy, I understand the obsession, and I'm watching him closely too, game in, game out, and actually thought that he made some really nice plays tonight. Not perfect.
Yeah.
Didn't like that he got hit hard twice. Didn't
love that.
Poor guy. I just want him to be healthy. But I want to just check in on Kirby Dach a little bit because I spent a lot of time talking to Brendan Kelly yesterday on Bluesky, and we were discussing back and forth about like what is important right now for the Montreal Canadiens, and he was very insistent that and I don't think he's a minority opinion or like an uncommon opinion, that they need to figure out something for the second line center position soon. And my thought with all of that is, what's the rush? We know they're not going to win the Stanley Cup this year. We know they're not going to win the Stanley Cup next year. If you're not actually in competitive mode, you can let Dach figure it out. Like, you've got a long runway left before you have to make that decision. And he was saying like, oh, they should trade for a 2C sometime during this year. And like,
I don't think a trade is a good idea.
Yeah, if there's a good trade, you make the good trade for sure.
Of course, yeah.
But parting with the assets necessary to acquire a second line center right now that is a significant improvement on Dach in terms of like the percent chance that they can fill that role going forward, I don't see how that helps the Canadiens right now. They would have to find somebody who's a sure thing. And then you like, there's
cost
people
a lot. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. What are you giving up in that situation? And then I've heard people say that Demidov kind of likes playing C, and maybe he's not a natural C, but if Demidov wants to play C in the NHL, they're probably going to give him a chance to do so.
Sure, but I'm not at all ever relying on a situation where a wing is like, I'd like to play C. And I'm like, that's nice for you, kiddo. Get back on the wing.
Hey, it's worked out before, has it? I don't know, maybe. But like a guy
So
like Demidov with that level of talent and like his vision, I
yeah,
can see it working. You know,
yeah,
it might be a more Malkin situation where you get through it by being purely dominant offensively and like just on the puck, and
hmm
defensively you're a bit terrible and your face-off numbers are bad your entire career, but nobody really
yeah.
talks about it because you're
But
Evgeny
no one
Malkin.
cares. Yeah, yeah. See, my feelings on like Doc are like halfway between the two of you. I think. Um, I I don't feel any need to do anything this season at
Yeah.
all. I think that's a like I think that's pulling the cord a little bit too fast. Um, but I think it really just depends what he looks like at the end of the year, how concerned I am.
Yes.
I do I think you agree with this too. We do need to see progress.
Yes.
I think that is important, but I don't think it's like I think it's too soon to be making any judgments on that. But I also understand where the concern is coming from because 2C is a position that is not a small position to fill. You know
No.
what I mean? So if you have to, I understand people being like, let's try to get that working. Let's work on it right now. I understand the impatience. It is important, but again, just I think this is a you can't be the again, you can't be a kind of team who tries to take shortcuts in a rebuild. Um, because that's how you get the Buffalo Sabres.
Well, and besides, Keksho's here in the chat says that getting a 2C is hard. 100% it's hard. However,
100%.
I do think we have to like kind of reformat our thoughts a little bit on what is difficult and not difficult to obtain in the NHL, and remember that Mark Bergevin is not in charge anymore. So we
Yeah.
don't just have somebody who says there's no PlayStation and then doesn't ever do anything. And by the way, Mark Bergevin accidentally on purpose acquired a first line center in Nick Suzuki, right?
Accidentally, yeah.
Like, did he want Cody Glass? Yes, but we got Nick Suzuki.
Yeah. Who
That's a
cares
guy
what he
that
wanted? This is what we have. Yeah.
sometimes you get lucky in situations like that, right? And Doc is still young, and what I was trying to communicate to Brendan and anyone else who was following that conversation is when we talk about Doc's injury being a factor still, I think a lot of people are looking at it and saying, like, physically, he's healed, it's fine. And yes and no, because yes, he's healed, but the rate of re-injury for ACL tears is actually quite high in the NHL. Like a lot of players who've had one have had multiple. Look at Andrei
Yeah.
Markov.
Yeah.
We saw Andrei Markov come back from one ACL tear and look horrible. Tear, or
Yeah.
actually, no, wait. He came back from one, looked okay. Tore it
Uh-huh.
again, came back, looked atrocious. And everyone was
Yeah.
like, okay, his career's over. And then he came back the next season and was fine. He was not
Yeah.
back to prime Markov, but he had adjusted with time and
Mhm.
became a great player for the rest of his career. I don't know if Kirby Doc has the level of hockey sense that Markov did, because that was incredible, that he
Yeah.
was able to change his game so much and still remain so effective. But players do adjust, and it does take time, and the mental aspect of it can't be overestimated. Like what I was
Mhm.
trying to say to Brendan was Kirby Doc is not a soft perimeter player.
No.
For those who remember when he
At
first
his
joined the
best, he's
Canadiens,
not. No.
yeah, like that first year with the Canadiens, the standout for him was board battles, right? He was
Yeah.
incredible. You couldn't get the puck off of him. He was
Uh-huh.
crashing the net. He played with reckless abandon. To get back to that level of play, Kirby Doc, in his own mind, not thinking consciously but subconsciously, has to believe that he's not going to get hurt when he gets into those situations. He's not going to miss a whole nother season. He's not going to have another season-ending injury. I'm sure tonight, where he got rattled a little bit, doesn't help a lot, but he got through it. So now that he can take that next step forward,
Yeah.
it really is about crossing that mental hurdle and finding the willingness to put himself at risk of getting injured the same way again.
Mhm.
That's tough. And it takes time.
Yeah.
And
It's tough.
almost every player from this serious of an injury takes time, like a full season to get back to where they
Mhm.
were. And I get that it's like frustrating and you want to have the answer right away, but we're not going to have the answer right away. We're just not.
I don't think that's I think that's a moment where you need some patience, and again, but I want to be really, again, I think I fall in the middle because I do. I spend a lot of time on the show talking about how much I'm not like. I always say I don't not like Kirby Dunk because I feel like I'm talking about him a lot because I am one of those people I think who's like worrying about that. But
I think
I'm
everybody's a
not
little worried.
worried. I don't think it's worrying to the point where I'm like, yeah, get rid of him. Um, I also I saw someone say somewhere here. I can't. Uh, something about Dano. I can't find it right now. I
Oh, that
don't
they get
know
Dano
what happened with
back?
my eyes. No, not getting him back. Something about how when he left. I'm so sorry. I can't read right now.
Yeah, it was Alexandre Christian says he quoted Bergevin says if you want loyalty buy a dog, and this is Bergevin also let Dano walk, probably changes the timeline and talk about a 2C. Yeah, I mean also losing Kotkaniemi, which was a Bergevin fumble, also changes that timeline. Not that he's worked out amazingly, but that's a young player who could have been developed more successfully.
Yeah, it developed at all. You mean?
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of missteps at C
Yes.
specifically with the Canadians in the Bergevin era, right?
Yeah.
Whether obviously acquiring Dano also was that's a 2C in the NHL
Mhm.
that Bergevin acquired. So hey, he acquired two centers. That's better than he thought that he was possible, right? So
And then he acquired Dvorak
yeah,
to replace
exactly.
Dano.
Yeah, that didn't
But
work out
it's
so
very
well.
much that, yeah.
It seems like
Feast or famine,
Bergevin's
someone in the chat
biggest
said, yeah.
problem with all the trades were if he was too involved. If it was his choice first, it was
Mhm.
going to be bad. Although Dano, he was always in Dano's corner. I believe he scouted Dano when the Blackhawks drafted him. I could be wrong
Yeah.
about that though. But yeah, Galchenyuk, Denny brings up Domi. There was so many centers that they tried and either didn't fit or they developed so poorly. Drouin was tried at center. Like it's been a long-term problem, and I get that that's a huge factor in
Hard thing
why
to do
fans.
in the NHL, let's be real, Andrew. Like, it's not just the Canadians. That's a very important role, and it's also one that a lot of teams seem to struggle with. So they're not special. I just think that there have been choices and decisions made that are regrettable. Um, and all I'm gonna say is that I'm glad that uh, that Mark Bergevin was convinced to choose Nick Suzuki or be given Nick Suzuki, I guess.
100%.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna shift into the third period here. We're gonna talk naughty or nice. Who makes our list
Yes.
on the Habs a little bit quickly here? I'm gonna put Kay on the spot maybe, but before we
Yes.
do, I'm just gonna tell you all a little bit about Inchu. All right, and Saint Motel as well. I kind of hinted at it earlier on, but I want to tell you about it a bit more. So Inchu is a small local company owned by a good friend of mine named Astrid, who is Armenian Quebecois, and she started out making jewelry. I think it was around 10 years ago, and she was told, "You'll never be good enough," and whatever. And she went forward anyway, and now she's presented her wares at Paris Fashion Week, Milan Fashion Week. She's been named. Her place has been named the best like jewelry store in Montreal. She
Oh
specializes
yeah.
in goth, glam, witchy stuff. It's like super welcoming, inclusive community that she's built for queer folk as well. It's a really fantastic, cool place that's like really intentional. Like everything in her shop is chosen for her aesthetic. It's so cool. Like even
Yeah.
like the knobs on the drawers in her jewelry displays, she sourced
Love that.
herself. Like it's just, and it's so funny because you bring in like our kids really like it there because Saint Moutel has a ball pit in the shape of a
Yeah.
heart with the Montreal Five Roses background
Cute.
in the back, which is just iconic. And
Cute.
both kids
Yeah.
love jumping in there, and both of them like walk around her shop and they're like, "Ooh, this is so cool! I love this pink thing and the spikes on this." And like, am I gonna raise a couple of goths here? But yeah, it's a really fun place and an awesome community, and the people who work there are so talented. So I highly suggest you check it out. Just see what's there. You can go to their website, intubiju.com. And Saint Motel is just super fun. I'm going to try to get as many of us here together in Montreal post holidays to go hang out there, take some pictures, and show you guys those and help out that way. But I highly suggest you head on down to 4000 Rue Saint Ambroise and check out Inchu Bijou. It's on the second floor, Suite 278, and Le Saint Motel is attached to it. So, it's time to be Santa Claus. Okay.
Oh, really quickly, Andrew,
Okay.
before we get started, King Gully rocks. Okay, that's all I needed to
Yes.
get. I needed to get my mention in. Sorry,
It's
I
been
realized I haven't. Oh my
we're way
gosh,
too deep in the show for you have not to
I
said
know.
anything about Caden Gooley.
I've been lacking. I've been lacking. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we got to talk. Well, hey, Caden Gooley, naughty or nice?
Nice.
Nice.
Of course, nice. What else am I gonna say? No, but I think genuinely, nice. I like him a lot on the left, and I think that he's been soldiering on. I think now that you see him on the left, you realize just how nice he's been by working on the right, because he's very clearly favors the left. So very nice, good team player.
Yeah, 100%. I'm gonna put on my nice list Cole Caulfield. I don't know if there's anybody in the NHL who loves when their teammates score as much as our small goals boy.
That's
Like,
so
obviously, he loves to
cute.
score as well, but even tonight, my kids were watching a little bit with me, and I think it was Slavkovsky's goal, and it might have been one of Laine's, actually. I don't even remember whose it was. There's a lot of goals tonight,
There's a
but
lot of goals.
it was like on the replay, they showed Caulfield like in slow motion with his hands up, just this big beaming smile, like gliding over towards the goal scorer. I'm pretty sure it was
It's
Slavkovsky.
Slavkovsky. It was
And
Slavkovsky.
both of my kids were like, look how happy he is. I like him. And I was like, yeah.
That's so cute.
It's
And they're
that
right.
something about that like electricity that Cole has. It vibrates
It's
through the
joy.
team, that those vibes. It's really special. And I really hope that this Canadiens team can be what we can all see they might be. Because, you talk about aura. And
Yes.
I've seen a few people talk about like when will we know that the Habs have their aura back, and they can have games like this, not on every game, of course, but on the somewhat regular, where they can get away on a team and really pile up the score. And I think what I would like to happen, this is my dream, is they don't tell us anything. But when they're ready to take that next step, nothing in the preseason. First game of the year at the Bell Center, they score their first goal, and they play the like old Habs goal song, the classic Habs goal song, and just like it starts pumping through the stands. And they brought it back a few times, but bringing it back when you're actually good, that's when the aura comes.
Yeah, yeah. Another player I'd like to put on my nice list, Josh Anderson.
Yes.
He deserves to be on there because he just seems like he's embraced his role and seems like he's happy. He's got a beautiful wife. He's doing great. He's on getting a lot of ice time because the Habs take a lot of penalties and he's killing penalties. Just nice. And for Laura's sake, also very handsome. Laura Slava, shout out.
It is true. And I think it's really fun from a fan perspective, but also just on like a human perspective, seeing the change in how Anderson carries himself this year versus what he was dealing with last year with that insane goal drought. And you could see it was weighing him down so heavily.
Yeah.
And now to come back and be more than just a one-tool player this year, like, it's weird to say because Josh Anderson's not that much younger than me, but I'm proud of him. Like, I'm really proud of him. It's really cool to see. And by the same token, Yoel Armia could have faced the end of his NHL career last year when he was sent down to the American Hockey League. Played amazing. Came out to the NHL. Played amazing. This year, the production didn't start out very well. People were kind of getting on him right away because he plays a slow game. It's easy to pick on Yoel Armia. And again, he's having a fantastic season. I'm really impressed with him.
Me too. I have always been a Armia defender. Also, one thing I'd like to put him on the nice list for is the fact that every time he takes a penalty, he looks extremely guilty. Like he never has the I didn't do anything wrong. His face is either oh come on or it's which I really appreciate. Also, King of the North putting Anderson on the nice list for having a beautiful wife is incredible. King of the North, I appreciate a beautiful woman. I just have to. What can I say?
100%, 100%. Trinka says, does Arbor Xhekaj get any good guy points? I think he does, and you can disagree with me, Kay, but I do not want to put Arbor Xhekaj on the naughty or nice list because, in my opinion, have you seen the TikTok sound that goes viral with Brendan Lee Mulligan, and he's talking about how laws are just rules enforced by like the dominant social
Yeah.
group in society? That's how I view Arbor Xhekaj. I don't care
He's
when he
nice
gets a
when
penalty.
he's naughty.
Yes,
No,
he
I
can be
think that's
both,
a little
and
bit of it. Yeah,
sometimes when Arbor Xhekaj is being naughty, it's actually being nice to us.
exactly.
You know,
Exactly. Sometimes
it's
we
giving us
just
something to talk about and something to hang on to.
yeah.
I do
No,
have one
I
on my
think for
naughty
me
list though. It's not on the Habs. Do you mind if I
oh,
dig in on that?
yes, absolutely.
Because I did promise to be nicer this year, to try to like focus more on like building up instead of like talking about people who are shitty.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna put Montreal media on the naughty list.
Oh,
I
yeah?
think they are way too emotional this year. Way too
Yeah.
emotional as a group. Not everyone. There's some great writers in there. You know, like I wouldn't go after somebody like Marc Antoine Gaudin. He's fantastic. But there's way too much emotional writing about Doc, about Slavkovsky. There just shouldn't be this kind of panic. And I see a lot of talking about the fan base not being patient enough for the rebuild. But
Projection.
I'm not getting that from the fan base. It's 100% projection. And I think this is one of the reasons why I got into media in the first place is seeing things happen or being said in media that are kind of blamed on fans. And then some fans see that and repeat it and they're like, see?
Yeah.
And that is largely how media works. People will repeat something that is repeated often enough.
Mhm.
That's humanity. We're a social
That's just yeah.
species. If we see something as acceptable, we're like, oh yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I agree with that too. And we saw it with young Carey Price. We saw it with young PK Subban. We're seeing it now with young Uri Slavkovsky. Luckily, Slavkovsky seems to have the head on his shoulders to get through it.
Yeah.
And the Habs, I think, are better at insulating their young players now than they once
Mhm.
were. But I'm not impressed with the general, I don't want to say dishonesty, but the level of projection from
It's
Montreal media,
representation. Yeah.
yeah, it is misrepresentation of the fan base, I find.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we talk all the time about the Canadiens fan base being like the smartest in hockey, and I think a lot of that is largely like the self-congratulatory backpats. But when you're at the Bell Center and you feel the atmosphere there compared to other arenas, there's a level of savvy in Montreal, a level of care that just
Yeah.
is not as common elsewhere. And I think
Mhm.
when you're talking down to that fan base, yes, there are some weird opinions and there are some emotional responses. But what somebody says right after a game ends, that might not be their opinion the next morning. And sometimes
Yeah.
you have to calm down, let people vent, and then come to
Mhm.
them when they're in a regulated emotional state. And I feel like Habs media just doesn't do that enough. It's a lot of talking down to and telling what to think and not enough engaging. So,
Yeah. For me, like just this is one of the parts actually of this gig of being game over that I had to learn. Was I had to self-regulate a lot quicker than I usually would. Because here's the thing, when you talk to a camera and you say your opinions, you then have to listen back to your opinions later. Because I do try to re-listen to some of the pods that I did, just, for self-improvement and also for like clipping or whatever. Anyways, so sometimes I listen back and I'm like, the person I was like 12 hours ago is not the person I am right now. So I think that's a little bit of like self-regulation too. But yeah, you're completely right. I think there's a pushing of narratives. I think I'm seeing a lot of one thing that I'm seeing that's like making me feel kind of like is I'm seeing, oh, we're just kind of following the expectations the team set. And sure, the team set some higher expectations, but if you really wanted to be like that, you could have done that last year too. Because
yep.
even last year in the golf tournament, the players were being like, "Yeah, we want to compete." Like you could always take something in a certain direction. And I think also on one hand, like you said, if you as the media want to like do whatever, that's up to you. But once you're saying that's the fans' opinions and you're trying to say this is how the fans feel and the fans are impatient and the fans are mad at Slav and all these things, that's not you can't just I don't like the talking down you said, and I don't like the controlling of the narrative. Then that leaks into other fan bases or national media, and it's like we don't think that, guys. We were thinking that.
And I think it's important to note that sometimes a group like Legacy Media, who are together at the games, every game, there's an insular factor there. They communicate with each other. Legacy Media doesn't really engage with fans that much. Like, social media is there, but the way that social media is set up is very much like, from somebody who has had a relatively large following on a social media website, the way it works is you say one thing and then hundreds of people say the same couple of things back to you, and you get overwhelmed, and sometimes you've responded nicely to the same question 5, 6, 7, 12 times, and then somebody asks the same question and it's kind of a mean-spirited or dumb question, and you lose it. And that's not a great place for engagement. Whereas this Game Over, which is live, we're dealing with people, yes, right after the game, where they might be in an emotional state, we might be in an emotional state, but we're here together collaborating on creating this, and I find it creates a much more holistic like situation to engage with fans. And it's just, the new media matters for a reason, right? And I think especially young people, they crave that engagement. They crave being part of it, because there's also this idea in media circles, especially legacy media, that the opinions of media are valued or higher quality in general than the opinions of fans. And it's just not true. Like, there are bad opinions in both and good opinions in both. And I think anytime you put yourself in a situation where, like, yeah, you might have an expertise in a certain thing. Like, I'm very good in terms of like the analytics, and I'm pretty good at the hockey analysis, but I'm not going to be the best person at knowing all the details. You know, we get corrected in the chat. I'm not going to be the best person at understanding all the human aspects of that, right? And you bring in other people to bring that to it, and I think we have that in the chat. It's a really cool thing, and I know part of this is like me talking about how much I like what we're doing here, but yeah, it's really great. Do you have any other naughty lists? Because I saw somebody saying that we need more people on the naughty list.
I feel bad, but I do think Caden Primo is on my naughty list. And I feel bad because I feel like the last 2 times I've been on the show, I've been like, oh, also, Mark Scheifele is on my bad list. Let's just bring that up. Mark Scheifele on my naughty list. Just assume he's there. Yeah, but to come back to Primo, I feel bad for it because the only time he comes up is when we need to talk about something going wrong, but I can't help it. I feel bad, but he is on the naughty list.
Yeah, he is. Trying to think of other. I feel like Mike Matheson is a little bit on the naughty list, or at least whoever's sharpening his skates. I know he was much better tonight, but the last one was a tough one. Although I don't think Mike Matheson himself.
Power play.
Like, the power play at times.
Actually, I think overall it's a lot better than we've been used to. I'm just used to hating it. I'm just used to hating it, so I was like, naughty list. But then I was like, it's straddling both, I'd say.
Yeah, let's see. I would say other naughty list stuff. Man, it's tough because it's one of those situations where I feel like the team as a whole has underwhelmed, but I don't think anybody has underwhelmed in a way that I'm like personally mad at them.
Oh, I got one. The refs.
Oh, yes.
We've had at least 3 games where I was like, the reffing cost us this game. And I try my best to be completely objective about it, but there's been at least the Rangers game. Like, that one's the big one that stands out to me. So I'd say the refs. I'm also seeing Alex Newhook for lack of assists. I saw someone earlier say for being a bad teammate by not assisting. I guess. I suppose.
Yeah, I'd still like to see a lot more out of Newhook overall. I liked what I saw when he was on the first line there for a stretch. But yeah, no assists for Newhook still this year.
No,
That's
no,
crazy. Like, that's almost
that's
impressive.
insane. It is.
Like,
I'm gonna choose to frame it that way.
like, I thought Cole went a while without an assist, but yeah, Newhook. I know that they're not really scoring much at 5-on-5, but still, you'd think that he'd be getting something, but no, nada.
So just to acknowledge him, Pez is on the nice list because he's been a very good teammate. It must be hard, but he's a very good teammate. And every time I've
Yes.
seen him, it's been like helping practicing, but also helping other guys practice. And also, in the media, interrupting interviews for fun. So I think he's been a very nice teammate, and I'd like to acknowledge that.
He has. I will. You know, I'm gonna do one more naughty list, and then we can move on to the overtime segment where we take some questions. It's a half naughty list though. Joshua Waugh, for the effort level after being sent down to the American Hockey League here. I thought he had a great attitude when he didn't make it out of camp. He played really, really hard in Laval. Came out to Montreal, didn't work out. Not a perfect situation. Laine was coming back, so he got bumped. And I understand for him, he probably thought he deserved to be called up earlier. And I think on balance, that was true. And then to get sent down again so fast, it's got to be a little bit crushing. But you got to pick yourself up a little bit, bud, and give us the effort that we know you're capable of, because you're a damn good player. We believe in you, but you got to put it out there on the ice.
I follow Scott Matla, and he's kind of where I rely on for the majority of my rocket analysis, and that's been kind of his impression. He was on the third line, I want to say, this last game, which is for a guy of his caliber, of his talent, shouldn't be the situation. So I'd like to see him on my nice list because he's got the potential. But I think in a situation like this where you are like, nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah.
Ever in the NHL, but especially when you're at that level of where you're trying to break in, we have like our big problem is like the top guy, the superstar. But our system has guys.
Yep.
Like it has damn good guys too. So you got to fight for your spot. And I hope to see that because he was in junior. There was like a I don't even know if reputation is the right word, because a perception or a reality, whatever it was, that like he was lazier. Whatever it was, he fought through it. He proved people wrong, or he improved whatever he did, whatever his situation was. So I'm more than confident he can do it. It's just a matter of doing it. So
yeah, exactly. He's been in the same situation before to like different levels, and he's got that chip on his shoulder. He wants to prove that he's gonna do it, and I think his NHL results so far have proven that he is a very, very effective NHL player. Just got to get back there. Got to be patient. Got to work your butt off. You'll get there, but for now, half on the naughty list. And I did see one excellent comment from Keck Shows. The Rottenberg, is that his name? The guy who is in charge of SKA, the coach.
He's rotten, all right.
He's terrible. He's terrible. And more than the naughty list. He's on, like, I don't even know what to say. The oligarch list. The Luigi
He's on
list.
the you are a bad person.
Yeah.
Luigi list.
The Luigi list. You know, a friend of mine mentioned the other day they went to GameStop to buy some last minute, I guess it's not last minute, but kind of last minute, Christmas gifts, and all the Luigi merchandise is gone. Tons of Mario stuff. Luigi stuff is gone.
I love that.
It's pretty great. It's pretty great.
Russian Darien, Bernardo says.
We're getting into dangerous territory on Game Over Montreal. All right, let's take some questions from the chat. Shift to our last segment, but before we take questions, I got to tell y'all about the merch, because you can head on to thegameovernetwork.com right now and pick up some Montreal branded merch. You can do our Live by the Goalie design. You can go by the Established line, which is fantastic. And we've got our really retro throwback skater design. We've got mugs that are better than this old one that I have from the last stop. I think Brendan from Winnipeg, his mom has bought like 6 mugs because she really likes the
I
mugs.
love that.
The
That's
beanies
so cute.
are really great. I know, right? I love when we can make stuff and like the families love it. That's really cool. You get to support your kid and also have some cool stuff. But yeah, it's good stuff. You can check it out. It's really great. We've got a sale going right now on beanies and hoodies. 15% off. Use the code GO Holidays.
GO Holidays.
So Game Over Holidays, GO Holidays, all one word, and you'll get 15% off on hoodies and beanies. There's no like price cap on that. You can just get a beanie if you want. I think they're only like $18 plus 15% off. We tried to keep everything really cheap for everybody. So our margins are thin on the merch. We just want it to be affordable for folks that want to support us. And I think that's important. So the merch is available if you wish to partake and support us. You can also check out our Patreon, which is linked on the YouTube page. Just click on Game Over Montreal here. And by the way, if you haven't liked the stream, please like the stream. It really helps us out. It helps us get into the YouTube algorithm and get some more viewers, which is really important as we try to grow this company and pay people. So please help us out. We love you and we really appreciate it. And I guess before we get into the questions, Kay, I just wanted to do like a quick announcement here for myself, because I'm going to be on less during the holidays, or pretty much not at all. I'm flying to Edmonton to visit family for 12-ish days, and I'm not going to bring my nice camera rig and microphone.
Of course, yeah.
So I'm not going to have the nice setup there, and my parents have probably much shittier internet than me, so streaming might not even be possible. But even after the holidays, more likely than not, we will probably be adding some folks to Game Over Montreal. So if you're interested, reach out. We're going to be reaching back out to the people who applied before as well and going through those candidates. But one of the things that I'm finding in building this business is that I have so many things to do behind the scenes that by my own standard, I'm not informed enough on a day-to-day basis with the Montreal Canadiens to host this show. But Kay and Mark are. I'm good to guest because I can watch hockey and analyze. No problem, fine. But for the nitty-gritty stuff, people deserve somebody who's in it completely, and I just haven't been able to be this season. So I'll probably be producing some other forms of content and jumping on as a guest relatively often. But in terms of hosting the show, for the rest of this year, probably I'll be on a lot less. You'll be seeing a lot more Kay, a lot more Mark, and some new faces, some new guests, things like that. And I'll come on as a guest often. You won't be missing me.
I won't let him go completely, guys.
Yeah, you won't be missing me, trust me.
Yeah.
But just in terms of structure of the show, I will be controlling less because, number one, I don't need to. We have amazing people here. I don't need to have my finger on every single thing. But on the behind the scenes stuff, I do have to do it. J Money is trying to get banned here, talking shit. Says Roddenberg's a really good coach. Look, your trolling's not even high effort. Come on.
I was gonna say, J Money, trolling used to be believable, and this is always on Twitter. This is always our interaction. My
Always
reaction
trolling.
is, trolling used to be believable, but also don't say anything believable. I get my feelings hurt. And I'll get really mad. I'll get really mad online. That's the one thing about me. If there's one thing I'll do, it's be mad online.
Be mad angrily at everyone from far away. Yeah, Bernardo Saunier calls him the Russian Terrier. J Money saying Josh Wall will be a flyer by the new year. Oh my god. Stop it. Stop it.
I mean, for Mishkov, sure.
Yeah, Outrage says the beer prices at the Bell Center are on the naughty list. Hell yeah. All the prices at the Bell Center are on the naughty list.
Yes, I would go with that.
Yeah, Bernardo says autograph ghosting was very naughty. Was that Joshua Waugh that did that?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Was that after he got sent down, or I didn't hear about this? See, this is what I mean. I'm not informed enough. Before. That's not great.
Yeah. Before,
not a great look.
It was a bad, yeah. decisions are made, and sometimes they're not good decisions. And as long as we can come back from that, that's lovely.
Yeah. Bernardo had a question earlier on in the chat that I wanted to come back to.
Uh-huh.
It said, "Do you guys think the Habs losing a lot for a long time may affect the culture, like Ottawa or Detroit or shutters Buffalo?" Yeah, if it goes on forever, right? Like, there's only so many years where you can not progress
Yeah.
or it sinks in. But you may disagree, Kay, or you may see it the same way. But I think that the Canadiens have like a better starting culture than those teams because
Hmm.
the Sabres tore everything down completely. Like they traded
Yeah.
everything. Whereas the Canadiens literally went to the cup final right before things completely fell apart. And from that team, they still have young players in Suzuki and
Hmm.
Caulfield, but also veterans like Gallagher, like who've been through it and are still there. Like I think Gallagher being with the team for so long is probably something that those teams just straight up didn't have. Like
Hmm.
Carlson was gone right away when the Ottawa Senators started rebuilding. Mark Stone was gone. Like there wasn't really a through line. Chris Neal even retired. Daniel Alfredson
Hmm.
left right before. Detroit, like all their guys were gone. Zetterberg was there for a bit, but then even that transitionary period with Zetterberg, Tatar, Nyquist, all those guys were gone. They
Yeah.
didn't really have anything to pull through. And like Buffalo, everybody's changed. Like how
Man.
many times have they changed that whole roster? The Canadians at
Well,
least have some through line players that can like calm things down a little bit and see the forest for the trees. And I think that's really important.
I think I completely agree with that. I know a lot of fans were very mad about the focus on quote unquote culture. We can have a conversation about that, I guess, like what does that mean, et cetera, et cetera. But I do think that they have prioritized that. They have prioritized having veterans in the locker room and having I think like a guy like I know there's people who are like aching to trade Mike Matheson, and I don't like that's a separate conversation. I'm not going to go there. Anyways, my point being is I think one of the best Gallagher really gets what it means to be a Hab. I think he really
Yes.
takes pride in being a Montreal Canadian. I think he understands the significance. I think he respects the organization. And I think it's been I almost think that like having Nick as the captain and Gally as an A is an extremely good combination of a captain and an A. Because I disagreed with the idea that like Gally should have been the captain. I don't think that would have worked. I think he's just a little too fiery for that.
Yeah, I don't think refs
Um
respect him either, which is a problem.
that's the thing. Yeah. And it's not if it's fair, it's not fair, whatever. But that's just what it is. And I think having that mix of this really fiery guy who's willing to who has the experience and has the years with a more calm guy who still is very respected in the locker room there have even at this point of a young team who's been bad for a little while there have still been I don't know about you Andrew but I've never heard even a rumor that like people don't respect him in there
Yeah, no.
um which for a guy like his age could have happened and I don't think they've been like losing enough for it to be this much of an issue. I think this is why it's really important to win games like this and it's why I believe a purposeful tank this year wouldn't have been a good idea. I think they might have accidentally kind of ended up tanking a little bit, but they didn't set their players up for that. They brought in new toys. They brought in things that would make this team better.
Yeah, they did. And they have as mentioned in the chat here, King of the North says David Savard has played so many playoff games and I don't think he's played that many, but he did win a cup right before coming here.
Exactly.
So there's enough experience on this team still. Like even Mike Matheson is a younger veteran, I would say. Like I think he's only 30, 31. But
Mhm.
like, there's enough experience on this team to ground them a little bit. And as you mentioned, like Nick Suzuki is such a good leadership figure. I think having a very calm, calculated, almost like intellectual leader, if you know what I mean. Like he's very introspective
Yeah.
in Suzuki, should keep them out of that mode. And he clearly wants to win. And I saw Trinka mentioned every time I worry about having a losing culture, I think about that last game of 2021-2022 when they absolutely beat up on the Florida Panthers B team. And I'm like, nah, they still want it. And yes,
Yeah.
I remember that game because in case anybody forgot, that was Carey Price's last game.
Yeah. Oh my God, why am I gonna cry? Let me change. I've been really emotional about this actually, Andrew. I've been thinking about it a lot. But one thing I want to say is Mike Matheson spent 2 years being under or I guess 2.5 or 1.5, under Crosby as his captain. That team, no matter what it is on ice right now, which it has gotten better, whatever. Don't want to talk about them considering what happened, but Sidney Crosby has been a very good captain, uh, at least recently, right? Like he's been very respected, and coming from a locker room like that, full of like experienced guys who are very demanding of winning, they don't expect to lose, even if they do, they don't expect to lose. I think coming from that into this locker room has also been a good. Yeah, I think that's also part of what makes Mike Matheson so good for this team. Also, he just wants to be here.
Yeah.
That's really big. He wants to be here. And just for this last little bit of winning culture, I do want to share a little tweet from Prianta, from Habs High Heels. It's a quote from Patrik Laine, who says about the ovation he received after his hat trick. He said, "I thought they couldn't be any louder than my first goal, but I was wrong." And that's part of why I don't think this can fail, because these guys, this team, this fan base makes them feel loved. When they
Yeah.
show something worth loving, I think they understand that there's something special here, and I think they would chase that. I think they would chase the love that this city can give them if they are winners, and I think that matters.
And it's funny that I feel like most of the world has gotten worse since COVID.
Yeah.
But the Habs fan base has kind of been almost to the pinnacle and then been humbled. And there's been a demographic change at the Bell Center.
Yeah.
There's, I think, less like direct comparison to the historical times because the fan base is getting younger. There's,
Yeah.
I don't want to say less attachment, but less of like that heavy weight hanging around the neck of like, oh, you're never gonna get the 70s teams back. Like we know.
No
It's
one's gonna get them back.
time to start appreciating the now. And I think the fan base is doing a very good job of that. And it's become a much more positive fan base. And yeah, part of it is because the expectations are low.
Also,
But I think it's
that,
going
like,
to carry
Andrew,
through.
I think there's also like a weird as close as we can get to a trauma bond for something that isn't personal, but a weird trauma bond from losing two key players the way we did after the cup run. I think that was really devastating for this team, but also this fan base. And I think that like really going through that, and then going through the god awful, unexpected god awful season. Let me just also reiterate that they did not mean to do that.
No,
They
that
did
was
not mean for that to happen. Um, so I think the mix of that has like you said, when it's rebuilding, it's a lot easier to be positive. But also B, I think this team is fun. Andrew, don't these guys like seem like and like it's the bit on Twitter that's like family. Every time they do
yeah.
something, somebody tweets family exclamation mark. And that's it. It's family. Like there was like a little clip of like how happy Arbor seemed after Laine's hat trick. It's family. Cole hugged him. Family. It's like they seem like such a close knit group that is bleeding out into the fan base. I think it's really hard to be too miserable about a group that loves each other.
Yeah.
The
And
boys love each other.
so much of that, like culture has always been a huge talking point in hockey, right? Especially among old heads. Like the old school guys, they love to talk about like locker room culture and like building a good winning culture. But I think we're seeing right now the difference between actually caring about culture for the players and having a functioning team and saying it based on like what hockey used to be and like what you think a good locker room culture is. Like the Bergevin regime, you could tell they always cared about that kind of stuff, and they're always talking about leadership and culture and what was his other big buzzword? I don't remember what it is anymore. But now with Martin St.
Try to
Louis,
forget, Andrew.
yeah, it's okay. I'm getting old. But now with Martin St. Louis, where he approaches things in a much more measured, non-reactive way as a coach compared to like Michel Therrien and probably even Claude Julien later in his career, and the expectations are higher. The culture is so much different. It's so much more. It's so much different, and like to have this kind of positivity in that group while they're losing most of the time, that's crazy. You know, and part of it is being young, yes, but also like David Savard's a big goofball.
Yeah, yeah. It's just it's so lovely to see because I think that like I, again, Rangers are in a completely different position, but you saw that like there's a coach who essentially desperately scratched a guy.
Yep.
In can't remember who the player is. One of their young guys who's actually doing really well. He scratched the
Capo
guy from the
Caco.
last game. Yes, yes. Um, and it was like a desperation scratch. It was I don't know what to do scratch. And yes, the situations are different, but there were some times in this so far this season, even last season, where it could have been very much um Marty being like, I don't know what to do to make you guys do better. And he
Yeah.
could have done something toxic. And instead, it seems like nothing else. He's been very communicative. And also, like, I again would like to just side note point out the Subban better person thing. We all know it was very uh there was it was racist. There was
Yeah.
some racism involved.
They
Let's
would
just put it that way.
never have said that about anybody else.
No,
Not a
no.
chance.
And I think like I don't want to speak about that aspect of what are the locker rooms, but it's just nice for me personally, you know. And Nick's, he's not white. Uh, I don't know why I whispered that, uh, but it just I think it's nice to like just see when you have a group that's this fun. I think the fan base also I see a lot of like younger women attracted to this fan base to like have more fun. You see fan cams, you see them doing like bits on TikTok, and it's just nice. It's fun. And I think that like the fan base just in general, to me personally, feels more open. And I think that's generally a hockey culture thing has been just it's been slowly but surely slogging along and getting better. Um so I'm just in conclusion, I'm happy. And also Flyers fans are toxic. You are correct, J Money. I will take you on that. I don't care if that's trolling. I'll believe you.
I've had mostly good experiences with Flyers fans, weirdly. Although Rangers fans I've had horrible experiences with. But you never know. You know, you run into who you run into. I did want to mention Amy P said that that last game, Price's last game where they scored 10, was also the Lafleur
Also,
game,
yeah.
which I had forgotten about. And I just got like shivers down my spine because you were talking about getting
I
emotional. And uh, Bernardo mentioned the tragic irony of them scoring 10 in Price's last ever game, one of the only times they gave him goal support. And like, listen,
yeah.
Price is right there, right? Like,
Yeah.
Carey Price through like my entire like career in this business was like the through line, right? I got into
Mhm.
writing about hockey because I found that the writing about Carey Price in particular in Montreal Canadiens legacy media was horrible and
Yeah.
betrayed a deep misunderstanding of the position and the sport itself, which is
Mhm.
it's still a problem in media. That just because you're in media doesn't mean you know shit about hockey. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, the bookend on Price's career and the what ifs surrounding it, knowing
They
how
hurt.
close the Habs were at times to building a quality championship team and that they just bottled it time after time. Yeah, it hurts. But it's time to move
I
on.
don't want to feel that again. Yeah.
All right.
But I remember the crowd chanted Guy Lafleur's name, I think, when they got 10. Uh and I remember that. I remember that game very clearly. I also, funnily enough, remember the team was very protective of Carey Price that day.
Yeah.
They always are of goalies, but I remember some poor Panther player just like skated a little too close and guys were on him.
Yep.
And I think that's the kind of not violent, but that kind of loving culture is what I really hope we see in this team. And
Yeah.
we already are seeing it. I just want to see them win now.
All right. We're
Not
gonna do
now, but that's the next step. Yeah.
2 last questions. One quick one. King of the North says, do they put Carey Price's number in the rafters? In my opinion, 100% yes. And anybody who talks about cups as being a like impinging factor needs to wake up and get with the program. That's
Yeah.
just not the standard anymore with the Canadiens. It can't be. He is a massive part of their history. To not
Yeah.
retire his number would be, in my opinion, very insulting.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think he retires number. He goes into the Hall of Fame, and that is that. There is literally no question in my mind. And I don't know if the management group decides, but I trust this management group to make uh, a decision that is in the context of the fact that nobody wins cups 5, 10 years in a row.
Yeah.
That's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean.
100%. Now, I had one last question in the chat. I forget who it was, asked if David Savard was going to get traded at the deadline, but I'm going to switchy changey it a little bit and say, of Christian Dvorak, UL Armia, Jake Evans, and David Savard, who is most likely, in your opinion, to be traded by the Montreal Canadiens this season?
Out of all of them,
Mm-hmm.
I think if teams have it their way, it's going to be Jake Evans. But I think David Savard is also up there. I'm not sure what the team will do, but in terms of who's going to be in demand, Jake Evans and David Savard.
Yeah. I think they will get offers for Jake Evans that will be extremely difficult to refuse, but I think they're going to keep him. I think there's just too much uncertainty at the C position that they're going to see if they can hammer something out with him. David Savard,
Also, he's besties with Nick. I would like to give this context. He's very close with Nick.
And we love him. Yeah. We love Jake Evans. Jake Evans forever. I think David Savard will definitely get traded. I think he has a lot of value as a veteran for like depth. I don't think it's going to be a huge trade, but I think UL Armia is going to return something nice.
You think so?
I think so. I think his last year and a bit here, like if he maintains what he's doing right now until like the trade deadline, I think UL Armia could get like maybe even a high 2nd round pick and a prospect, like because of his versatility.
I think he's the kind of guy who actually I noticed quite a few times. I actually put in my notes. I was like, "Holy shit, Armia is hard to get to win a board battle." Versus there are several times that I noted that, and I do think, like you said, I think a contender would do really well with him. I think they'd really like him, and his his charming Finnish disposition.
You know he's not going to cause problems, right? Like
exactly.
He's going to come in there. He's going to do his job, and he's going to be quiet. He's not going to make noise in the media because he doesn't even really like talking to the media. You know, he's just going to go there, score some clutch goals in the playoffs. King in the North actually had a great one. He said, Armia on the Wild. I could 100% see that. I think he'd be a great fit there.
I think he'd be a great fit, and I would absolutely loathe it.
Yes. Armia to Colorado to hook back up with Artturi Lehkonen, and you know.
I don't like the idea. I don't like the chances of us winning a trade versus Joe Sakic and Chris McFarland, apparently. But I do think, actually, it's funny because I was thinking Jake Evans in Colorado would do really well. I was talking to one of my friends who's in media there, and I was talking to him, and he was like, "I want him," and I was like, "You can't have him."
Yeah, Jake Evans would be great for them because they do need center depth. I mean,
yes,
I know Nathan McKinnon is doing everything.
Parker Kelly of Sens fame at 4C, which is not where you want him. So,
I mean, for Colorado, they just really need Pittsburgh to start sucking again so that they can get Sidney Crosby at the deadline because we all know it's going to happen. Just let it happen. Let them win their cup together, and then Sid can be happy and go to UFA next summer and sign here because that's what's going to happen. He wants to come home for his last tour. I don't want him to end. Like, I understand people want him to stay in Pittsburgh and do like the one team thing, but he deserves better than what they can offer him.
In all seriousness, I don't think Sid has that happen. I don't think he's gonna do it.
Yeah.
I think for better or worse, he's gonna go down with that ship.
I just think he has so many years left that it would be a waste.
He does. He does. And I think I just for some reason just don't get the feeling he'd ever do that. I think he's a ride or die kind
He
of
is.
guy. But one thing I've noticed is that recently in the last few years, I've noticed more of a trend of people willing to like step away. But I just don't, my heart says I want it. Of course I want it. I want Sidney Crosby on the Colorado Avalanche, lifting the CUP. Uh, I've become like that, Andrew, to this point. That's where we've gotten. Uh, but I don't think it happens. The guy I think retires a Hab though, Gallagher.
Yeah, I don't think he's going
I know
anywhere.
people don't love that contract. I don't think he's going anywhere.
I don't think he's going anywhere either. Honestly, I think that
he retires a
contract
Hab.
that contract is not so far out beyond his actual value that I think it's even a problem.
At this point, yeah, with the cap and also frankly, the way he's learned to adapt, I think we're honestly good.
Yeah, it's fine. They can shoulder a couple million extra for a veteran player. It's every team has at least one contract like that.
Has their guy.
All right, we've gone super long tonight. Thanks for joining us
Yes.
tonight on Game Over Montreal. That was an awesome game and a really fun show with Kay. Can't wait to do another one after the holidays. I'm out for a bit. We'll see you in the next one.
I'll be on. I'll see you guys.